If you're a fan of Grey's Anatomy, you already know that over the years, the series has made us question our own sanity many times. It doesn't matter if you're a longtime fan or if you just started watching recently. We've all had those moments when we were left speechless, shocked, and maybe even needing a moment to breathe. In today's video, we'll revisit the most traumatic moments from Grey's Anatomy. Please leave a like on the video, which was really hard to produce, and subscribe to the channel to receive new Grey's Anatomy videos. Let's get to the video! 1. When Meredith had to turn off Derek's life support. Patrick Dempsey's departure from the show caused a wave of shock among fans. Many wondered what would happen to the beloved character Derek Shepherd. Instead of a simple breakup or a peaceful ending, the story of murder, Meredith and Derek, received a tragic and unforgettable conclusion. Derek suffered a severe car accident, and after desperate attempts to save his life, Meredith was faced with the decision of letting him go. The scene is devastating. Meredith, strong yet heartbroken, stays by her husband's side while he's unconscious, with the machines still attached. She holds his hand with love and sadness, saying goodbye without hearing a final word. The machines around them start making slower and more intermittent sounds until the room falls silent. Seeing Meredith there, completely alone, facing the loss of Derek, is an emotional punch for anyone who followed the couple's journey. To make the moment even more heartbreaking, shortly after, Meredith finds out she is pregnant with Derek, carrying their shared love and legacy within her. This final touch transforms the scene into something even more intense, leaving an indelible mark on the hearts of the series' fans. 2. George's death. It's one of the most impactful and well-crafted moments in Grey's Anatomy. The episode begins with a severely injured and unidentified patient, leaving the medical team and viewers on edge as they try to figure out who he is. He was in a devastating accident after throwing himself in front of a bus to save a stranger, an act of courage typical of George O'Malley. But no one knows it's him yet. His face is unrecognizable, and the suspense builds with each scene. When Meredith finally realizes that the disfigured, dying patient is George, the shock is instant and devastating. She sees 007, George's nickname, written on his hand, and in that moment, everything falls apart. The recognition brings intense pain to the team and to the fans, who, like the characters, didn't have time to prepare for the loss of someone so beloved. The final scene with George and Izzy is unforgettable. She, also between life and death due to cancer, appears in a vision beside George in the elevator, both dressed in clean, healthy clothes, smiling as if they're ready for a new journey. This moment, between dream and reality, is full of symbolism. It represents their bond and the inevitability of a possible farewell for both. This silent, moving goodbye became unforgettable, forever marking the memory of the series' fans. 3. Mark and Lexi's goodbye. Lexi Grey and Mark Sloane's farewell is one of the most painful and unforgettable scenes in Grey's Anatomy. Shortly before, Lexi had finally confessed her love for Mark, and fans glimpsed the possibility of seeing them together and happy. But fate cruelly took another turn. In the episode where the plane carrying the team crashes in a remote forest, despair takes over. The characters are severely injured, and amidst the destruction, we find Lexi trapped under the wreckage, unable to move. As Mark, also injured, crawls towards her, we realize the gravity of the situation. He holds her hand, trying to offer comfort, and in one final exchange of glances, full of love and sadness, they relive unspoken feelings and the possibilities that will never come to be. Mark, with a choked voice, promises that they will have a home, a life together, and that she is not alone. Promises of a future that will never materialize. The dialogue is so sincere and vulnerable that it disarms even the most insensitive. Lexi, with her last strength, expresses the love she feels for him, and then dies in his arms. Mark survives the crash, but his heart, both physically and emotionally, was already broken. Days later, he succumbs to his injuries, but not before an emotional and final goodbye at the hospital. This tragic and inevitable ending for such a beloved couple was a hard blow to fans, leaving a deep mark. 4. The hospital shooting episodes. The final episodes of Grey's Anatomy's 6th season took suspense and drama to a whole new level, becoming some of the most intense and traumatizing in the series. When an armed man invades the hospital seeking revenge, the safe, healing environment transforms into a true nightmare. The characters, who are like family to the fans, face absolute terror, and every scene keeps the audience on the edge, not knowing who will survive. Miranda Bailey, usually so brave, is seen for the first time as vulnerable and scared. When she tries to save Charles Percy, another doctor, she realizes there are no supplies or help nearby, and, helpless, tries to comfort him as he dies. She herself has to hide and disguise herself, her heart pounding, hoping the shooter won't find her. This vulnerability exposes the real fear of losing her own life. Elsewhere in the hospital, Alex Karev is shot and fights for his survival. With no one to help him, he drags himself in agony through the hallways, calling out for Izzy, his ex-wife. His pain and desperation are palpable, and the scene is heartbreaking. Amidst all this, Christina Yang has to perform emergency surgery to save Derek Shepard, even with the shooter threatening her life and everyone around her. Meredith, seeing Derek on the brink of death, faces such deep despair that she puts her own health at risk. In the middle of all this chaos, she finds out she is pregnant. A discovery that should have been joyful, but turns into a silent tragedy. With the extreme stress, she suffers a miscarriage right there, with no one by her side to comfort or help her. The episode not only tested the characters' psyches, but also the fans, who experienced each moment as if they were there, in a collective state of shock, not knowing who would survive. It was a visceral experience that left deep marks on the series and on all who watched. 5. Meredith's COVID Dreams. In the most recent season, Grey's Anatomy explored the COVID-19 pandemic, and as always, Shonda Rhimes knew how to intensify the drama. When Meredith Grey contracts the virus, her condition quickly worsens, and she spends most of the season fighting for her life. In a semi-conscious state, Meredith is taken to a dream space, where she finds herself on a peaceful beach, surrounded by family and friends who have passed away. But instead of peace, these encounters provoke deep pain for Meredith and for the fans. Among the figures she sees are Derek and George, the great loves and friendships that marked her life. Their presence, initially comforting, quickly becomes a reminder of the grief and unbearable losses Meredith has carried. The dialogues between her and Derek are intense and emotional, reigniting the pain of seeing him leave years ago, while George, with his sweet nature, reminds Meredith of her early loss and the affection he had for everyone. These encounters are beautiful and tragic at the same time, as the return of these characters by Meredith's side makes both her and the fans relive, without mercy, the moments they had to say goodbye. With each conversation, it becomes clear that Meredith is at the threshold between life and death, and this is a hard blow for those who root for her. This storyline brought a new wave of sadness and nostalgia, as, in a way, these COVID dreams reopened old wounds and made fans relive the mourning of beloved characters. 6. When April and Jackson lost their first child. Even those who weren't fans of the couple, April Kepner and Jackson Avery, had their hearts broken when watching one of the most tragic moments of Grey's Anatomy. Since they discovered the pregnancy, April and Jackson were radiant and full of dreams, planning the future of the family they had always wanted. However, a cruel twist interrupts this joy when, during a prenatal checkup, April receives the devastating news that her baby suffers from a severe and incurable condition. It is a soul-crushing choice, deciding between terminating the pregnancy or continuing a journey already marked by pain. April, deeply religious, decides to carry the baby to term, despite the suffering it causes her and the emotional burden on Jackson. When the day of the birth arrives, happiness mixes with sadness, as they know they will only have a few moments with their child. With the baby in their arms, April and Jackson exchange looks of pain and love, trying to find comfort in each other. They whisper sweet words, saying their goodbyes amidst tears, aware that this would be the only time they could hold and get to know their child. This moment is so intense, it overflows the screen, as we see April and Jackson facing grief in the most human and raw way possible, with the sense that their love, despite all their differences, is genuine. It was a scene that deeply moved fans, leaving a scar in the hearts of those who followed their journey. 7. When Meredith was attacked by a patient. Throughout Grey's Anatomy, Meredith Grey has faced many challenges, but the brutal attack she suffered in season 12 was one of the most anguishing and difficult moments to watch. Alone in a room with an agitated patient, Meredith is suddenly attacked and severely injured, with no one nearby to help her. The scenes are intense and shown in a way that places us inside her experience, a mix of despair, pain, and silence, as her vision starts to fail and her hearing fades. After the attack, Meredith is temporarily unable to speak or hear, which leads the series to show her recovery in a very personal way, as if we are living through each sensation and suffering with her. From this first-person perspective, we see Meredith isolated, trying to communicate and understand what is happening around her, while her colleagues struggle to stabilize her. In this vulnerable moment, Alex Karev, one of her closest friends, makes it clear just how much she is loved. He firmly declares, "Everyone in this room is her family," reaffirming how much Meredith means to the hospital and to each of her colleagues who have become her second family. This collective support during such a painful time is both beautiful and heartbreaking, reinforcing the deep bond that exists between the characters. It was a tense and emotional episode that left fans with their hearts in their hands, worried about Meredith's future and moved by the love surrounding her. 8. Reliving Joe's traumas with her. Joe Wilson's journey in Grey's Anatomy is marked by deep challenges and pain. Over the seasons, we get to know more layers of the character and the traumas from her past, and living through these moments with her was a painful experience for the fans. Jo is a strong character, but her story reveals the scars left by abandonment, violence, and the trauma she has carried since childhood. First, we follow her struggle to escape Paul Stadler, her abusive ex-husband. His presence on the show is oppressive, and watching Jo confront her past and face the man who terrorized her for so many years is a moment of great tension. Even when she finally manages to free herself physically, the emotional trauma still follows her, showing the lasting impact of abuse. Another devastating blow occurs when Jo discovers that she was the product of rape. While searching for her biological mother, hoping to find answers and a new beginning, Jo is met with rejection and the painful truth of how she came into the world. The discovery sends her into a deep depression, where she begins questioning her own identity and worth, believing that maybe she has always been unwanted since birth. These moments are portrayed with sensitivity and truth, addressing themes such as abuse, abandonment, and depression. Watching Jo go through these events, facing the pain, therapy, and her own healing process, was heartbreaking, but also important. Her journey brings real and painful issues to light, leaving a message of resilience and the strength needed to overcome such deep trauma. 9. The story of Denny and Izzy. This wasn't just a moment, but an entire arc that deeply shook the fans. When Izzy Stevens falls in love with Denny Duquette, a terminal patient waiting for a heart transplant, we immediately sense the risk and intensity of the story to come. The connection between the two is immediate and deep, challenging the rules of the hospital and Izzy's emotional limits. In a desperate decision to save Denny's life, Izzy manipulates the transplant system, committing a crime and risking her career and reputation so that he can get the heart he desperately needs. The plan seems to work, and fans breathe a sigh of relief for a brief moment, believing that the couple will have a chance at happiness. But, as is typical in Grey's Anatomy, the joy is short-lived. Shortly after the surgery, when Izzy and Denny finally seem to have overcome the adversities, he suddenly dies, leaving Izzy devastated. The scene of Izzy, paralyzed by shock, lying next to Denny while her colleagues watch in silence, is one of the saddest in the series. Denny's unexpected loss not only destroys Izzy emotionally, but also has lasting consequences for her career and relationships. This arc, filled with love, loss, and sacrifice, deeply marked the fans, becoming one of the most unforgettable moments in Grey's Anatomy. 10. Meredith's drowning. This is one of the most intense and spiritual moments in Grey's Anatomy, another near-death experience for Meredith Grey. During a rescue operation at a ferry accident, Meredith falls into the cold water and is swept away by the currents, only to be found unconscious and near death. The scene of her drowning is suffocating, and the minutes she struggles unsuccessfully to surface are agonizing, making it clear that she is facing more than just the force of the water. While unconscious, Meredith enters a state of limbo, a mysterious place where she meets several characters who have died over the course of the series, such as Denny Duquette and Dylan, the pump tech. These encounters are filled with symbolism, with each character making her reflect on life, death, and the strength to continue. Amid these conversations, Meredith seems to hesitate between accepting her fate or returning to life. She is emotionally exhausted, questioning whether it is worth fighting to return to a world where she has already suffered so much. At the hospital, the tension is palpable. Her friends and colleagues, especially Derek, are in silent despair, refusing to give up on her while trying to revive her. Derek's agony as he tries to keep her with him, alongside Christina, who does not lose hope, is heartbreaking. This moment becomes a powerful metaphor for Meredith's grief and resilience, as she eventually decides to return and face the challenges of life. It was an episode that deeply marked fans, reminding us how much Meredith is a survivor and how powerful her bond with the other characters is. And thus, we end our list of moments that truly shook the fans' psyches in Grey's Anatomy. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share with your friends, and of course, subscribe to the channel for more emotional content about Grey's Anatomy. See you next time.